Well, hello, welcome back to Tail 3 Cabins. As you can see, our RV's back. It's been gone for well over 2 months. The RV dealership had it. They tried to take care of some warranty issues. Some are still outstanding. The big major factor with our RV was this door. It wasn't closing right. You had to slam it to get it to close properly or lock, and it was just a nuisance, especially if you wanted to be quiet at night taking the dog out and not disturb other campers. But they tried bending the door, they tried all types of ways of manipulating the door. They said it took them a long time to get approval from Keystone to get a brand new door shipped, and it finally came in a few weeks ago. They installed it, but when we went to go pick it up, it's missing a decal. And they said that they sent a decal, but it was the wrong color or the wrong size. I can't remember which story they were going with. We picked up the trailer anyways because we need to take care of a few things before we go on our next trip. Funny story though, when we were leaving, we got about 20 minutes away from the RV dealership on our way home, and they said the decal came in. So I did not want to turn around. We got a lot of things we need to take care of. Maybe when I hook up the trailer again to the truck just before we're leaving, we'll try to schedule something where we can just run by in the parking lot. They can apply this decal, clean it off a little bit, and we can be on our way. I do want to make a few modifications to the RV before we go on our trip, and one of those is changing this vent. So it's just a regular vent. There's no fan up there or anything like that. Our previous trailer had a nice fan. Actually, it had 2 nice fans, one in the bathroom and then one up in the main portion of the trailer. This is just a vent. You open it up. It has no cover on it or anything. If you forget to leave it open, it's going to rain in here and get our bed all wet, leave a puddle on the floor. So I want to make some changes, and there's a lot of ifs on what's going on up there. But I bought this fan a while back, and it's a Maxxair fan. It's the same exact fan that we had in our previous trailer. Has 4 speeds. Basically, it just exhausts the air. You can buy all types of fans on RV sites or Amazon. This is a Maxxair. Like I said, it's the same one we had in our previous trailer. And you can get some that have more speeds. This one only has 4. You can go up to 10 speeds. You could have reverse. You can allow air to come in. You can allow air to go out. Some have rain sensors. Some have electric doors. Some have remote controls. So you can go pretty crazy with it. They're all pretty standard, the same size. These openings are 14 by 14 inches. And then once we have this installed, if we have this installed, we have to check for wiring up there first. I would like to put a nice vent cover on top of it. And we also had a vent cover on our previous trailer. And that is nice because you get the ventilation and you can open your vent up. And if it starts raining or you forget that you left it open, it's not going to get wet. It's not going to rain inside here. It wouldn't get the bed soaking wet. The vent covers are very nice. I'm not certain why they don't just come with them when you spend so much money on the trailer. And this trailer is supposed to be more on the luxurious side compared to our other one, which I think is more on the rugged camper side. And the rugged camper side seemed to have nicer features than this one. Now, our maiden voyage, I did make a video on changing out the vent fan in the bathroom. It came with this little dinky fan that doesn't really move a lot of air. It was very loud, kind of annoying, and I changed that out, and that was very simple. I used a Hangs fan to replace that. I didn't have to pull anything from above the roof. I didn't have to worry about getting any of the caulk off, the sealant, and just changing the whole vent system itself. I basically just had to pull out the guts of the fan itself, and the Hangs fan fit right in there, used the existing wiring, gave me multi-speeds with a reverse. And it's a much more powerful fan, better suited for the bathroom, and better suited if you want to air out your trailer quickly if you've been gone all day and it's pretty warm in there. So we're going to do something similar, but this is going to be a little bit more difficult to install. So we're going to have to remove the housing inside, and then we're going to have to go up on the roof, take off all the caulking and sealant that's up there. That'll be the hardest part. But one thing I do want to check out is remove the casing here and see if there is any electric wires nearby. Now you might think if you look up here, I've got lights up here on both sides. There's got to be wires all over the place. But you obviously do not want to have these lights tied in with your fan, because you can only use your fan then when the lights are on. So we need to find some wiring up there that is always hot. Now, depending on your trailer, your RV, or your motorhome, or whatever you have, it might be pre-wired. A lot of times there'll be a vent here, and sometimes they'll dead end some wiring right here in hopes that you're going to talk to the dealer and say, hey, could you put a vent fan in? So they make it easy for them to install. Not always the case, so we're going to find out what's going on here. Now, I did add some lights here when we first got the trailer, and I like these lights better. They are 12 volt, and they are hooked in with that wiring, which is always hot. That was not too difficult to install because I was able to find some wiring right inside the channel here above the cabinet, and I'll leave links below if you're interested in some of the things that I use to get this job done. So let's get started and see what we got up here. We got some wiring right away right here. Maybe I could tap into that and let to see where that goes. Alright, so as I mentioned, there could be wires, and there are. I have no idea. It's a pretty thick gauge, so I don't know if these are 12 volt low voltage wires or not. But I'm going to first check. Okay, that is a good sign. I've got 13 volts. I brought in a 12 volt lithium battery. I'm just testing the fan out before we get too far, just to make sure that the fan actually works before we start installation. So my wiring here on the trailer, apparently the green stripe is positive and the white wire is negative. And then when you look at the fan here, they say to use this black wire to connect it to positive. So if you look, I've got just some alligator clips. I kind of removed a little bit of the casing of the wire here just to test it. And then I confirmed to make sure that the fan was working with a battery first. But I think this is how it would be wired up. I got these alligator clips temporarily. I didn't want to do anything permanent. If I come over here, and it looks like that's going to work. Let me turn it up to 3. And it is exhausting out to the top. Now let me turn the lights off in here. Double check. I'll turn all the lights off just to make sure. Alright, so those wires right there are always hot. So this is going to work out a little bit better. Now for the hard part is to go up on the roof. I am waiting for some butyl tape to come in from Amazon. So I just did some preliminary work here. Alright, so this is the part everybody dreads. It's getting all this sealant off of the vent here. And if you are strapped for time, do it when you have plenty of time to take care of this. I would allow at least 1 to 2 hours just to getting all of this sealant off of around the vent area. And then there's going to be more sealant underneath the flashing of the vent itself that you're really going to want to be careful when you pry this up. So I have a couple things with me. I've got a plastic putty knife. I've got a Phillips screwdriver to get the screws out. I've got a impact screwdriver, and then I've got a razor knife, and I would be very careful using the razor knife on any of this. The best thing to do is take your time. I'm setting aside a good amount of time to do this. I've got a little fan over here because it's about 90 degrees. I'm somewhat in the shade right now, so I'm just going to try to take my time, put some tunes on. I started out with the plastic putty knife, and that just wasn't rigid enough to cut through this. And I don't know if, depending on how old your trailer is, if this stuff gets more brittle over time, but our trailer is less than a year old, and this stuff is still pretty tough to get off. Again, it might depend on the age of the sealant you have on there, but I've seen some people just able to roll it off, pull up a little bit with their finger and start rolling it and creating a large ball like you're making a snowman. That method did not work at all on this trailer. Now for most trailers, the membrane on the roof is very thin. It's not much thicker than a tarp you might buy at Harbor Freight or Home Depot. Going slow and cautious is the best way to do this, because you don't want to put a gouge in your roof covering. Once you get your screws out and a majority of the sealant off of the flashing, you can start prying underneath the flashing very gently. There is probably more caulk under there, or possibly the same butyl tape that you saw that I purchased from Amazon. So again, slow and steady. Do not rush this. You might be tempted at this point just to pull the whole thing off, but you really want to make sure you've got every side loosened up before you do that. And not so much pry it off, but lift it off. I'm going to pull up as much stuff as I can off of the roof membrane, but I'm not going to get it all, and I don't want to risk tearing. See, I have a little tear there and another little tear right there, but that should seal up easily when we put the new vent back on. But you can see how thin that is for the whole roof, and that kind of scares me when I think about going under trees with branches and scraping the top of the roof. I'm just using some rubbing alcohol here just to clean up around the perimeter of the vent fan. I'm not getting too crazy, just enough to get some of the dirt off. I chose to go with the butyl tape. It wasn't that expensive from Amazon. It's similar to caulk, but just laid out in nice strips. You can get caulk for this installation, but I felt the butyl tape is easier.
This is the hinge side. You want the hinge side to be facing towards the front of the trailer. If you think of the wind coming at it, and if you accidentally left it open, you would want this vent to open from the rear here, and the hinge over here towards the front of your trailer. Alright, I put the butyl tape on and set it in here to fit. Now I have a kind of a crown on top of my roof here, so the old vent was actually made of metal around these edges, and this is plastic. I think the metal actually works a little bit better when it comes to being with the right contour of the roof, but I think I'm situated in a good spot here. I put a fresh bit in just so I wouldn't strip any screws. So if you're doing this, you might think about the same thing. That's the old one. It didn't look that great. And if you see these clips here, that is so you can put on your vent cover to protect it from the rain. So let's just start in the center, work our way out.
Okay, I got all the screws in. I'm going to set up my Dicor caulk, which is self-leveling. I'm going to put that out in the sun for the next hour or so, let that warm up before I use it. But let's go back inside and do the wiring.
I'm using this T connector, and the inline wire, the wire from the trailer, is going to get set into here, and then clamped down, and then my fan wire is going to get sent in through here and then clamped down. I think it'll be a less obtrusive, take up less space, and I won't have to cut that other wire.
The gauge is a little thick for this connector, so I'm just giving it a little help with some pliers.
Okay, that's one. You can use any connectors you want. You want to use wire nuts, if you want to use the Wago 3-in-1, 2-in-1. I mean, I could have cut this whole wire, but I'd rather just splice into it, leave it somewhat intact. And there we go. We got a connection here. Alright. Okay, now we just need to neaten up these wires a little bit, shove them up into the ceiling area. I'm going to put a little bit of electrical tape just for a little bit of reinforcement. Okay, we are all finished on the inside. Let's go and seal the deal on the outside. Alright, here we are at the tail end. It's good timing because it's getting pretty darn warm out here. So I'm just going to start off with covering up all the screw heads. There's no extra credit for neatness on this. I'm just going to run a bead of this right across the seam of the flashing and the trailer roof membrane. Now I'm just going to put it on liberally. Now, since this fan has built-in clips like I showed you earlier, these vent covers are really easy to put on. There's basically just a pin that you insert, 4 pins, and it's ready to go. Easy to take off also. Alright, that's about it. It's not too terrible of a project. It's not really complicated. There's not a lot of know-how necessary. It's more tedious than anything. Once you get all that sealant off on top of the flashing, off the old vent, you're pretty much golden from that point on. Like I said, most RVs do have some sort of electrical running. Some do have dedicated wires sent there with the thought that maybe somebody's going to want to install one of these fans in the future to make it easier on the RV service department to install it. To add one of these fans was around $400 if I'm not mistaken. I think the fan's about $100 and then $300 for the labor. So if you want to look at it from that position. Also, when I took this cover off and saw the wiring there, I probably could have put another one of those Higgs fans in and not even had to worry about taking the whole vent off the top on the outside. So that is another thing to consider if you don't want to get too deep into something like that. I did want to have that vent cover to put on the top. So that's one of the reasons I went with this Maxxair. Now we have this vent. When we forget about it and leave it open, if it rains, if we're not going to get wet in here. Even if we're going down the road on a travel day and we forget to close it, it's not going to create any issues for us being open. Now, a few tips. It's probably better to do this in warmer weather. I wasn't in direct sun. It was pushing 90 degrees today, so it's better for pulling up the old sealant and putting down the new sealant to have warm weather for both of those applications. And another tip would be I could have used another tube, and I actually ordered some more sealant from Amazon, and it's going to show up here in 2 days. And I should be able to just reapply a little bit more in some of the thinner areas that I left up there. Being so fresh and clean right now, I don't really need to treat that area. If you were coming back maybe a year or two later and you wanted to freshen that up, well then you would have to scrub all the dirt off of that sealant, clean it up a little bit, and then you could apply some more right on top. Down in the description below, I'll leave some links to the connectors that I use, the type of sealant that I use. I'll leave a link for the fan and the Maxxair cover also if you're interested in that, and the Higgs fan that I put in the bathroom back in the spring.
But that's going to do it for today. I appreciate everybody watching. Hope you enjoy and subscribe to these videos. Click on that little bell when you want to know when a new one is coming out. And keep an eye on us. Take care, everybody.